Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag here at the Skating Penguin Network. I am Garrett Bahana. Alongside me are my two co-hosts here for the Mailbag, the weekly Mailbag episode, Snail and Robbie. We are here to answer more of your questions over the course of this upcoming week as it pertains to Pittsburgh Penguins, music, culture, life, and anything in between. Robbie, Snail, and I gathered before we hit record, and I told them that I was going to deliver something akin to a eulogy for the Pittsburgh Penguins after losing both of those games to the Jets and the Minnesota Wild. The Penguins are slowly but surely losing all of the ground that they had with the games in hand. They still do have games in hand on teams that they are chasing in the Eastern Conference, but at this point, I've gone back and forth so many times on the trade Gensel, don't trade Gensel train. And Robbie did mention before we started recording that he is waiting until the trade deadline to deliver his final verdict. And I'm sure we're going to have more discussions over the next, probably it's less than 4 months, less than a month from now until the trade deadline. And I'm sure we're going to have more discussions about will they or won't they trade Jake Gensel, the pros and cons to that. But I don't feel great. I don't feel great about this team. Malkin looks like a 37, 38-year-old forward. I mean, the only thing keeping this team together right now is Sidney Crosby's incredible season, and the rest is being held together by string and duct tape. The more and more I watch this game, this team, the more and more I get frustrated, wasting 2.5 hours of my life when all they can do is barely scrape by and score a goal a game. But I will get off my soapbox because we have more of your questions to answer. And question number one for you, Robbie, ever so fittingly, comes from Brian, has to deal with the consistency of this team. Robbie, if you were in charge, what would you change for this team to find more consistency? Brian says this win one, lose one stuff is so frustrating.
At this point, I don't know what the answer is outside of major wholesale changes to the coaching staff. Really, it's not working. Obviously, I think we've seen that for the past 2 years now. The win one, win two, lose one, two, something in that area. That's not how to make the playoffs. It's not sustainable for a playoff team. And that's just kind of who they are right now. I don't think any amount of in-season moves can do that, especially even if you make a coaching change. I don't think that you're not going to get a Terry into Bausma or Johnson to Sullivan type result with just the coach. Not that they couldn't inject some life into the team, but there's bigger issues with this roster. You can't just be buoyed by Sidney Crosby, even though he's playing great, and the goaltending, which has been maybe the biggest surprise of the season. It's a shame they're wasting that goaltending. Carlson, Letang are obviously playing great, and so is Pedersen, but you can't do it with 3 defensemen and 1 forward, two forwards if you want to count Gensel, that are playing consistently. Brian Rush shows up occasionally. You get good games every 3 or 4 games. The bottom 6 might show up for a period or two, but overall, nothing that can be done in season is going to fundamentally change or make the team more consistent in the long run. Question number 2, staying with Brian here, but hopping over to Snail. Any small hockey brands whose gear we could see become a staple in the coming years?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind right off the top of my head. Probably the most like unsung hero amongst like right now probably predominantly beer leaguers is a website called Hockey Stick Man, which is it's very telling of what they sell. They sell hockey sticks. They have some sort of deal or contract. I don't really know the inner workings of how they do it, but they get shipments of sticks from teams. So you get all the custom curves that players have. But that's not the thing that they offer that I think will make them a staple. They have the connections. They have this thing called their Pro Blackout series. And I think they offer, I don't know the exact number, I want to say maybe 10 to 12 curves, different curves, where if you go to a hockey, like a Pure Hockey or whatever hockey outlet you go to pick up your gear, you maybe have 2 or 3 retail curves that they consistently carry. But this brand Hockey Stick Man, they have 10 to 12 curves, which some of them are they were popular custom curves that NHL players had used at one point. Maybe like more extinct, maybe old school patterns that they no longer make retail anymore. And they're a blackout, so they don't have any name or they don't have any, obviously, any branding on them. They're just a black stick. You can get them with grip or gloss, no grip. They just offer, and they sell it because there's no brand on it. They offer them at a price point that's very difficult, I think, to compete with. Like, you can get like a really nice, almost a custom curve, to your liking. The specs are to your liking for, significantly less than you would buying a stick retail. And this is, I think they have a lot of, like I said, fans that are more like recreational kind of beer league players, but they do work closely with a lot of NHL players. I've heard of NHL players hitting them up. Look, when their curve maybe is no longer made by manufacturers or retailers, like I think a storied one was like a Phil Kessel. He couldn't find his. He was trying to buy things retail, hitting up people looking for his curve if they had him in their garage. Hockey Stick Man has helped out players that were in a similar situation as them. So I think going forward, they're only getting more popular. I see them. They're at a lot of big events. Every time there's like a winter classic or an outdoor classic or whatever it is, a heritage classic, they get a shipment of the same sticks those players were using. It's interesting stuff. And for gearheads out there that haven't heard of Hockey Stick Man, I suggest you take a look at them. Aside from that, True's still doing their thing. I think they recently just dropped their whole lacrosse program, so all the True lacrosse gear is gone, but they're pumping, it looks like they're still pumping money into their hockey program, which I still see a lot of True hazardous and whatever out there on the ice. One I wanted to bring up too was Sherwood. For a long time, Sherwood was a staple in the NHL. Back in the wood stick era, the 50-30s out there, iconic hockey sticks. But there was a long time that Sherwood kind of disappeared, and they were more of a Big Five stick. You go buy a wood stick from Big Five or Canadian Tire or something. But they've perfected the one piece stick, and they've kind of started to rebuild their brand, working with influencers and kind of rebuilding their image a little bit for the modern era. They've got, future phenom Connor Bedard on board. So Sherwood's been around for a long time, but I think you're going to start to see a lot more people maybe signing contracts and testing out Sherwood gear in the show. That's pretty much all I got for this. It's tough for some of these smaller brands to break in and become, like Brian said, a staple. I mean, Tovi Hockey seem to be on the path to kind of becoming that. I know Charlie Coyle in Boston was using one of their sticks, but I've since seen maybe a little bit less steam from them. Like it's tough for some of these brands to get off the ground, but yeah, like I said, check out Hockey Stick Man, because I think they've got something out there for just about everybody. All right, Garrett, question number 3 coming from Brian. A little tattoo talk for everyone here. Garrett's tattoo is definitely, without a doubt, chicken nuggies, a burger, ice cream, and all the other food we talked about tattooed right on his stomach.
So I'm curious. I don't know. I'm assuming you guys brought up the fact that I wasn't here recording on Thursday because I was getting my first tattoo done. Were you guys? I'm assuming because every time I'm not here, you guys just like to roast me over an open flame. Was I being roasted for getting a tattoo done?
Well, what actually happened was
no.
we put it out there that we wanted people to guess what you were getting tattooed, also the location of where this tattoo was being put on your body. So that's where the speculation comes from, Garrett.
I see. So it's a much more friendlier thing that transpired than what I originally thought in my head was happening. I wouldn't have been surprised if you two were, and Brian and everyone else. I think Kim Larson has given me some digs as well. I wouldn't be surprised if everyone here was roasting me over an open flame regarding my tattoo. But no, I sent the tattoo in our group text on Thursday when I got it done. And I think I sent my tattoo, a picture of it, on Twitter to Brian. It's just a little Blink-182 logo tattoo on my right forearm. Turned out great. Turned out exactly how I wanted it. But so not yet. I think I have some ideas for tattoo number 2, maybe tattoo number 3 as well. But you know, Brian gives me a good point here. Maybe I should get some tattoos of all of these different kinds of foods on my stomach. So that is a wait and see for the future kind of question.
Maybe an Angels and Airwaves tat next, and then the Boxcar Racer right on the tramp stamp.
Yes, right on the tramp stamp. Absolutely. I was actually thinking of doing a Star Wars tattoo on one of my biceps, but I haven't finalized anything like that yet. That is interesting. I wasn't thinking about Boxcar, Angels and Airwaves, but now you got me thinking like that's where I should go to next. But I have a whole bunch of options, and they say the body is just a blank canvas, and it's up to your limits of your imagination.
A lot of real estate left on you if that's your first tattoo.
Yeah, there's a lot of real estate. There's a lot of the thing I'm looking for though is like less sensitive places. Like I don't want to put a tattoo like underneath my armpit because that's like one of the most sensitive areas on the body. You know, anywhere near the nether regions, that's an incredibly sensitive area on the front side or the back side. But
right on the taint.
Oh God, yeah, that's exactly where my tattoo number 2 is gonna go. All right, we'll go back to Robbie here. I forgot to put Brian's name here for question 4. This question does come Brian for you, Robbie, and it's a fun hypothetical. Would you rather be in a car for 10 hours with no stops or have to run the Boston Marathon?
And I'd say that to be, oh man, do I have to run the whole time? Can I just walk the marathon? Probably rather be in a car, to be honest. 26.2 miles sounds pretty miserable.
For Brian, it's not. We already know that. Or Snail and I already know that for Brian. Here's what I'll say, Robbie.
Brian does that in his sleep, hungover.
Robbie, game the system by just bringing a bunch of empty water bottles and just, you know, if you got to take care of business for over 10 hours, bring some water. That's what you got to do.
Let's unpack this quick. So, Robbie and Garrett, what's the longest road trip you think you've ever been on?
I've driven to Alabama. I'd say that's probably the far.
How far is that? Like,
probably 24-ish hours total.
Okay. So when you were driving there, Robbie, did you have to, were you trying to make time? Were you gunning it on the freeway the whole time? No stops, or were you taking your time?
There was we split it up over a couple, 2 days. So it wasn't life or death that we got there by a certain time. So we weren't afraid to stop or anything like that. But I'd say that's probably the farthest I've gone in a vehicle.
For me, it's about eight hours from here. to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I think that's the furthest I've gone. I have relatives up in the Michigan area, but yeah, I mean, I haven't really traveled like by car. I haven't really traveled that many different places in my life yet. So
I've driven to California a handful of times, or been in a car going to California just a handful of times. And when I was courting my partner, I got us tickets to an awesome music festival that happens out in the desert in California called Desert Days. And we hopped in a car and gunned it down. And there was stretches of time where I think it was like 10 hours of maybe, of course, stop. If it was just me, I mean, I'd grab a coffee cup or a water bottle and, do what I need to do. But we were stopping here and there for her. I'm not going to make her do that. I'm not cruel like that, Garrett. But dude, yeah, I don't know. I think running a marathon for me personally, and I feel like I can speak for both of you, is just absolutely out of the question. I'll soil myself in a car before I have to run a marathon.
I'll videotape myself soiling myself in the car before I run the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I second that.
No desire to run the Boston Marathon or any marathon for that matter. All right, question number 5 for Snail here. Another hockey gear question. I saw Nike Hockey Zoom Elites are making a comeback. I think those iconic white skates back on the ice would be epic.
So I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but shout out on Instagram at Just Do Hockey. The fella that is kind of heading this whole project. I don't know him personally, but I'm a fan of his work. His name, I got some notes here just to make sure I get everything right, because I think this project is actually super cool, especially for hockey fans that were around in the late 90s. CJ Gamble. So I know CJ Gamble through, there was a hockey company. I don't believe they're still around, but they were called Verbero, and they were in the more modern times making 2-piece hockey sticks where you can actually interchange shafts on blades on the shafts of sticks. I do believe that they're no longer a company. He then headed up a company called Hopa, which is a little bit newer, and it's the same kind of thing, really big in the roller hockey community. They do a really good job with customization. I've seen beautiful goalie sticks for ice hockey that they've made really good with customizing. Lots of cool, colorful stuff that you don't see from other outlets. So shout out CJ Gamble. So he's heading up this project, and it's called I think it's literally just called Just Do Hockey, and their mission is essentially to be noticed by Nike, and their plan is to try and work with them. So what they've done is they've gone, and I think we've talked about him on here before, and I know Robbie, and I don't know if Garrett's super familiar. Like I said, this is a remake of an ice skate that was super iconic in 1997, and it was Fedorov's of the Detroit Red Wings Nike, I believe it was a Zoom, or the Air Fedorov. It was his skate. Just an iconic ice skate. I mean, it was so, like, we talk about style gods on here. Fedorov was the style god. He's recreated that skate on his own without Nike's help or anything. And right now he's working with an influencer out there. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. His name's Pavel Barber. He's from Toronto. He's a skills coach. He's awesome. He makes great content. And he's like Canada's Swaggy P. I don't know if either of you guys know who he is. He's working with him. He's out there wheeling around in these I think they're calling them the Air Fedorovs, and they just look so awesome, man. Like, the fact that he's gotten it dialed in that close without any help from Nike themselves is truly a great feat. And for gear nerds like myself and other ones out there, it's just a thing of beauty to see. So yeah, their mission is to essentially try to right now they're actually rolling out into a phase 2 of their mission. They completed phase 1, and phase 2, they're rolling out actually a new line of skates. And what I assume would be a lot of other merch and maybe another hockey line, because we know that Nike no longer is in hockey. It used to be Nike Bauer. Nike is no longer in hockey. Their mission is to work with more influencers and get their stuff out there and grow some support and essentially get notice by some Nike execs and say, hey, look at the kind of the market we've shown is there for this stuff. especially the retro stuff that's kind of coming back full circle. And I guess their goal is to just get Nike back on board with hockey, in some capacity. So I think it's awesome. Check their Instagram because it's got a bunch of cool stuff, especially those out there that have a soft spot in their heart for nostalgia. All right, question number 6, going over to Garrett, and this is I saw this question and this got me a little bit excited. I'm really curious to hear what Garrett thinks of this. But Brian asks, if any of you guys aren't Neck Deep fans, do yourself a favor and listen to their new self-titled album, Pop Punk at its Finest.
Snail, I'm assuming you've listened to Neck Deep self-titled.
Actually haven't listened to their new self-titled album, but Neck Deep I was a pretty big fan of theirs. The alternative. They have a live show, a pop punk live show, and I have it right here. It was for the APMAs. I forget exactly. Alternative Press Music Awards in 2016. They have a performance unlike any other, covering all the greatest pop punk hits you could ever want. Garrett, I'm going to send this link over to you in the group chat and Brian, if you're listening, check out their performance at the APMAs because that is a thing of beauty for pop punk fans out there. But I digress.
When I saw Brian ask this question, I perked up a little bit because I found Neck Deep over this past summer just on a whim. I was just going through Spotify looking for some new music, and I found Neck Deep. I instantly got hooked. I instantly fell in love, and I saw this tweet Brian sent to us. I messaged Brian last night through my personal account. I'm going to the Neck Deep concert next Wednesday. They have a Pittsburgh show next Wednesday at Stage AE, and I will be going to that show with my brother-in-law. Super excited. I hear Neck Deep puts on a great live performance, so I'm very, very excited to see what the hype is all about. But I have listened to their self-titled. It is superb. A no-skip 10-track self-titled album that just came out late in January. If you are a pop punk fan like myself, I absolutely 100% recommend it. All right, we will go back to Robbie here. Robbie, here's another question from Brian talking about more pop culture. Any Entourage fans here? For Brian, it's a top 3 series all time. Brian was also watching the movie the other day, and who did I notice was in it? That's right, big Jeff Carter. Robbie, I know Entourage was like a big show in the mid-2000s, towards the end of that decade too. Snail, you're also more than welcome to be included in this discussion. It was a bit more before my time, but seeing how you two are older than me, I will leave that discussion to you two.
So I did watch Entourage, and again, one of those shows where early at the beginning, very good, excellent, very good prestige TV. Definitely tailed off, at least in my opinion, in the later seasons. Top 3 all time for me, I cannot go that far. It's good. It's funny. It's kind of crazy. The movie was the movie. Again, one of those, it was always going to be a movie, but one of those things to me, it's hit or miss. Jeff Carter would have been in LA with the Kings during this period of time. So yeah, they would have athletes and other famous people on because the show is based in Los Angeles, and Jeremy Piven is really good in the show. Really, the whole cast does mesh very well together. But top 3 all time for me, that's a little bit of a stretch. Series all time. No, can't go that far. Very good, very solid movie. It's okay, but yeah, I mean, I don't blame anyone who liked it. It just wasn't a start to finish banger, in my opinion.
Never really watched it too much. I think around that time I was way more interested in other TV shows. But shout out Kevin Connolly from Entourage.
Yeah,
he has a podcast, a hockey podcast called Quick Shift Podcast, and his co-host is former NHL bad boy Sean Avery. So if you want to hear some hot takes and some great banter between Kevin Connolly from Entourage and Sean Avery, former New York Ranger, blinding Marty Brodeur, you go check out what they're talking about, because I've listened to a few and it's pretty unhinged. And where do you guys like Sean Avery? You guys have a place in your heart for Sean Avery?
I can't stand him.
Douchebag.
Really? Oh,
nah.
Okay.
Again, I agree. I mean, again, anybody that ever played for the Rangers just has a massive stink. in my opinion. And Avery was an unrepentant douchebag, especially some of the comments he made about people.
Some of it's rubbish. I get it.
Yeah.
I
guess it was just always fun to beat because he always tried to get under the Penguins' skin, and for the most part, the Penguins, of all teams, the Penguins were able to avoid it for the most part. Like the Brodeur stuff is kind of funny to think back on. The fact that they actually just like straight up made a rule that like you could not face toward the goaltender, you had to face your back had to be toward the goalie, and stuff like that because Marty Brodeur threw a giant tantrum about that. But Avery. Maybe they would change my mind if I listened to that podcast, but for the most part, he just always came off as a scumbag.
I mean, he is a scumbag, but I think I have a soft spot for Avery myself personally because when he was living in New York, he was policing the bike lanes out there, making the bike lanes a safer place. And I'm a biker. I'm a bicyclist.
Yeah.
And I respected the hell out of it because he was the voice that some of us bikers just we don't have it. Some of us, you can't go up and he'd go up to a person parked in the bike lane who's still in his car and just bark at them like he's still on the ice. And I had a little bit of I have some time for that personally, but I'll get off of it. But yeah, weird times with when he brought up Entourage, I'm just like, that Kevin Connolly's talking hockey these days.
Kevin Connolly's a massive Islanders fan. They interviewed him for that ESPN 30 for 30 special they did on the Islanders when that guy like fake bought them, and he's interviewed next. He's a massive Islanders fan, but no, I mean Kevin Connolly, an Islanders fan, has always been a huge hockey fan, big supporter of the game that way, and I'm sure him and Avery gel well together because again, Avery would be easy on a podcast because you just like tell us this story about this, and he'd probably just sit there, and Connolly could probably just go to the bathroom and just eat dinner while Avery tells his entire story for an hour and a half.
Sean Avery, you put a quarter in him and he just talks.
Yeah. All right, question number 8. Jumping over to Snell here again. We got Lemieux Yager. We got Crosby-Malkin. Do you think we'll end up with another generational duo to bring us out of the dark ages when that time comes?
I don't think so. I just like the fact that this happened twice in like our lifetimes is just, I don't know. I just don't know. Also, like, are the crop of kids coming up and playing hockey, like, are they as competitive? Like, I feel like the newer generations, and I don't know, maybe I'm way off on this, but are you going to get as competitive kids coming up that have the same, like, that are like, I mean, Lemieux, Yager, I mean, there's an argument that Crosby-Malkin aren't even kind of in the same era as them. I mean, comparable, but maybe a different level. Of course, you hope maybe that's the case. Maybe another duo down the road. Maybe when we're all in retirement homes and there's no contact in hockey anymore, and it's almost a game that we can't even recognize anymore. Maybe the Penguins will have some two-headed monster again, but I doubt it. You know, I think right now a bright spot. Let's just hope that Braden Yager turns out to be maybe a top 6 player before Sid retires. Other than that, I'm not holding out any hope. Sorry to be a pessimist, but what do you guys think? You guys want to chime in on this at all?
They're gonna have to. Oh, go ahead, Robbie.
I mean, it's blind luck, is what it is. I mean, it's blind luck. The Penguins. I mean, the Oilers got Draisaitl and McDavid. Like, I mean, it's just blind luck. I mean, you don't know. I mean, 2, I don't know. 1, I mean, 1 would be, I would say, be getting spoiled again. But 2 like this, I mean, I wouldn't even say the Capitals necessarily, even though they had Ovechkin, had 2 like they never had that duo. I mean, Backstrom was probably as close as they got to having that big duo. It's just blind luck. I mean, maybe they get it, maybe they don't. The odds are obviously always going to be against you. You can have better odds than others, but you're never going to have like guaranteed odds or even anything over 50%. So, I mean, it's all blind luck. It's how the balls bounce, and the Penguins have been lucky. You just hope that you can get lucky at least one more time down the road. And if they get lucky twice, then I don't know. It's just blind luck. If it happens, it does. It doesn't. But more likely than not, it won't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, like take the duo part out of the equation. Like for the Penguins to even think about sniffing a potential generational talent, like they're going to have to be towards the bottom of the barrel, and like Robbie said, like it's no guarantee that they get the top pick, but like, you know, the NHL is like starting to reward those lesser teams who are continuously finishing at the bottom of the standings with increased odds of maybe having the ball bounce your way to get that first overall pick. You're going to have to continuously be a lottery team if you're going to have that kind of luck. And I think maybe that happens. You know, maybe the Penguins become a really dreadful lottery team again. Maybe the thought process is, okay, it's going to hurt really badly in the short term, and the hope is you come out of it in the long term with like a at least maybe you get lightning in a bottle and you win the lottery, or you get a top 3 guaranteed pick, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, the general consensus is here, it's incredibly difficult to have luck go your way, and that's all it really is going to come down to. It's going to come down to the Penguins being bad and having luck on their side. They've been fortunate in the past when they've been bad, so you know, it's just a matter of, will it happen?
Also, like it has to be, like Robbie said, luck, because the years that the Penguins got the first overall picks or the second overall picks, there was generational talents at the top of that draft. You look back at kind of some more recent drafts, like the Rangers, for example, they got a first and a second overall pick, and they got Alexis Lafreniere, who is right now more of a bottom 6 player, definitely didn't live up to the first overall hype. Capo Caco, who's, you know, decent, maybe more versatile player, probably a bottom 6 guy on a great team. Owen Power, not, you know, he's developing. I'm not hating, but it's just like, I don't know, is Owen Power a first overall pick? I mean, it kind of is a sign of how strong the draft was. Uri Slafkovsky in Montreal. I mean, these aren't generational players. That it also depends on the strength of the draft too. So the fact that if the Penguins were as bad as they could be on a year where you're getting a golden goose like a Bedard or a Crosby or a Lemieux or whatever, it's just like Robbie said, it's just always the odds are gonna be against you always.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
All right, let's see here. I think we're at question number 9. Going over to Garrett.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Brian says Hooks or Pick. Either Hooks is the toughest person to get in touch with, or Garrett is purposefully lying about him not responding.
All right, so I have to clear the air here. I did get a text message back from Jim. It was before the bye week. I had messaged him because we got that question. This was a couple weeks ago now at this point, and we were going to set something up over the bye week, but that was the same week that I was basically out babysitting / dog sitting, and it kind of just turned into not like schedules not aligning properly. But that's not to say that this is not going to happen, because it will happen eventually. We will have Jim on here eventually for a sort of Pennsburg podcast reunion special spectacular, I guess. It'll happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
But the schedules, we just got to make sure everyone's schedules align at this point. Maybe it'll be in the off season. Maybe it'll be towards the end of the season. But I can assure you, for longtime listeners who have listened to me and Jim ramble about the Penguins, he is coming. But you know what they say? They say good things come to those who wait. So keep your fingers crossed and keep your eyes out for when Hooks makes his inevitable return appearance. Question 10, we go across the pond here for Robbie. This question comes from Edward Beckham. Robbie, what are your thoughts on, it seems like this rumor happens every couple of years. What are your thoughts, Robbie, on a possible NBA team in Pittsburgh?
From an entertainment perspective, I love it. But from a reality perspective, it's not going to happen. And I hate to burst everybody's bubble on that one. Pittsburgh doesn't have the population or the economic base to support four major sports teams, unfortunately. So it's wishful thinking on. I know there's a exploratory group that's looking into it, but I do not see it being a feasible option to bring, or Pittsburgh being a feasible option for the NBA to bring a team to. Again, they do have some of the infrastructure with like the arena. Obviously, you could use PPG Paints Arena. I just don't know if they have the greater population of Pittsburgh. I think there would be support here. I just don't know if it would be enough to attract what the NBA is looking for. So I love the idea of an NBA team in Pittsburgh. I just don't know how feasible it is, and if the NBA, if Pittsburgh's the market, the NBA is looking for, whether it be a relocation or an expansion.
Let's just half joke. I say this half jokingly. Let's just move the Pirates somewhere else.
I mean, I'm
joking.
Never gonna it's never gonna happen.
I'm with you, Robbie. The NBA is never gonna happen
yeah,
here.
It's just not gonna happen in Pittsburgh. And hey, yeah, it's just Pittsburgh is good with 3 professional sports teams. They don't have the population or the demographics, is a better word, to support a 4th, unfortunately. Question 11 from Brian over to Snail here. Yo, I don't know if you saw, but the Arm Dog liked my tweet to Snail about running while fasting. We are big time now, boys.
Yeah, he pigeon tossed my tweet, and then he likes Brian's tweet that essentially says I tweeted at Arm Dog. He was on his little side piece project of Spittin' Chicklets called Game Notes, and he was talking about he's doing the intermittent fasting, which I partake in ever so often, but I asked a question kind of facetiously, like, what about beers or whatever, like after the fast, like after you break your fast, are you drinking beers at all? And then what happens is Brian sees that and messages, why don't you go for a run? And Arm Dog ignores my question about beers and likes Brian's tweet about basically get off your ass and go run and quit thinking about beer while you're fasting. So that's the story behind this question from Brian. I would say that Brian big timed me there. I guess him and Arm Dog are more flow bros now than me. So congratulations, Brian. I'm jealous. Have you guys ever, Garrett? I did you ever interview Colby Armstrong before when you were doing the interviews back in the day?
I'd have to go back and look. Off the top of my head, I want to say no. Now I'd have to go back and look at the list of episodes we did with me and Jim and Robbie and me at that point. Robbie, I think you were here for some interviews too before.
Yeah,
we sort of.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly who, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, I want to say no, but I know we have a question. We'll have a question from Brian coming up later in the week for part 2 of the mailbag that talks about he asks about interviewing more people on the podcast maybe in the future if we were ever to switch back to that. So we'll save that question for part 2 later in the week, but off the top of my head, no, I don't think we interviewed Armstrong.
Well, Army's a beauty. Brian, I guess since you guys are so close now, maybe you can try to talk to him and get him on the pod, and we'd interview the hell out of him. What did you guys think of, I guess this might, I don't know if you guys are speaking honestly, maybe this will work against him. What did you guys think of Arm Dog as a Penguin? Were you guys bummed when he left?
It was for Marion Hossa, so I can't it was for Marion Hossa, so I can't complain too much. He was, I always wanted him to come back after, he left and he kind of did his time in Atlanta. I think he was a free agent for that one off season where I thought the Penguins might bring him back because Crosby loved playing with him. But yeah, I'm glad he's back in Pittsburgh. But it was for Marion Hossa, so I can't really complain too much. Sorry to Colby Armstrong.
Yeah, not a lot I wouldn't give up for Hossa. Anyways, just curious maybe what your guys as Pittsburghers consensus was on him. I loved him. I loved the way he played. They need a Colby Armstrong right now. So yeah, Brian, why don't you pull some strings since you're so close with him now and get him put in the good word. All right, I think this is our last question for this part of the mailbag, and it's going over to Garrett. I don't know who said this.
This
I
is
would
from
assume it's
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
It's talking about Green Day. I thought Garrett would find this interesting. Mark Hoppus accidentally wrote all the small things when he was trying to learn to play Jar, which is a deep cut on the Dookie album by Green Day. Garrett, before you answer, are you familiar with Dookie by Green Day?
Yeah, it's Dookie is like, it's not the album, it's the album that sort of saved Green Day's career, basically. It
was a big deal.
Yeah,
as a youth.
It's sort of, I mean, it was before my time, but it was the album that sort of almost reintroduced Green Day into the mainstream and sort of revitalized their career as punk artists. But yeah, I thought I heard this story before, so I just wanted to double check before coming on here. There's one small detail. It wasn't all the small things. It was what song was it? It was What's My Age Again. It was Mark was he was riffing around with JAR, and he ended up creating the riff for What's My Age Again. So I think all the small things that was a Tom DeLonge song. DeLonge was writing some like generic ass pop punk thing about his girlfriend who became his wife. But yes, Hoppus was trying to either learn the riff or play around with the riff from JAR, and it ends up becoming What's My Age Again, one of their premier hits. So this mailbag has been filled with pop punk from top to bottom. I can't complain too much, but fellas, do we have anything else here before we want to wrap up part one of the mailbag?
I got nothing.
Let's just hope that this Penguins team finds some consistency, because you gave a eulogy today on the pod to open it before we didn't even get to questions yet, and it's just like the Penguins should be taken out behind the barn and shot. Yes. Let's get to some questions.
Yep. And I cannot wait for the Penguins for them to drop the puck on Wednesday against the Florida Panthers, and like for them to lose by a score like 4-2, like they have for the majority of this season.
They need a defenseman that'll punch someone in the nose and say, "Don't come near this crease."
Will the defenseman put the puck in the net? That's my question. Like, I don't care if he punches a dude and gives him CTE. I just want some of these $1 million players to put the puck in the net instead of scoring 1 goal a game.
Are we ready to say bye to Sullivan yet? Are we cool with him being fired if it happens?
Whether you are or whether you aren't, I don't think Sullivan is going anywhere, at least not in the short term.
It definitely, based on, I believe Josh Yohe tweeted like last week or during the bye week, he pretty much said that you guys can hope that he gets fired all you want. It's not happening.
Do you guys think that him just being so safe, like with management and all of that, is there less of an incentive for him to push buttons to win?
I don't think so.
No, he's a guy that wants to win. I think you'd see more what's the word I'm looking for? More apathy from him if he was trying, or if he was just so comfortable in his position. I think he's a guy that still wants to win. Now, if maybe he's not allowed to fire his assistant coaches, I don't know. We don't know all the inner workings of that. But I don't think that he does not come off as the kind of guy that would get so set in his ways or so comfortable in his job security that he would just give up or become less focused on winning because of his job security.
Just curious what the consensus was on that.
I mean, I think to wrap it up, there's a long-standing belief, especially in the NHL, that coaches have shelf lives. Sullivan's been here for almost 9 years now. It'll be 9 years in December. Is that, are we past
we're well past what would be a average.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like in the NHL, it's unheard of in any sport, really. Not even just at this point, like the NHL tends to turn over coaches faster, but like even by NFL standards or MLB, any of the major sports, even by those standards, like 9 years at this day and age is absolutely unheard of. I mean, Joe Quenneville got fired. I mean, for goodness sakes, from Chicago, a guy that had technically more success with the Blackhawks than Sullivan has with the Penguins in terms of Stanley Cup totals and stuff like that. But well past what I would consider, or I mean, not even consider mathematic, what has been worked out to be like the average life expectancy of a coach in the NHL. So we're well past that. But yeah, I expect him. Would you say he took over in 2015, right?
Yeah, December 2015.
Yeah, so I mean, we're at 8 years, a little over 8. It'll be 9 years, assuming he's still coaching next season. But yeah,
let me put it this way for you guys, Garrett, Robbie. If he was a jar of mayonnaise, would you trust the expiration date on him right now?
No, but that's not really a fair.
I think it's fair.
I just don't know what. Again, my biggest fear is if they do fire him, the NHL has such a track record of just recycling other head coaches that I don't know if there's a better option out there right now. Just because if they'd be willing to bring in somebody fresh and young, from that's been working his way up through the ranks, sure. But just to go out there and replace him with like a Gerard Gallant or I'm trying to think of Laviolette's hired right now, but an Alain Vigneault or something like that. I don't want any part of that.
Bruce Boudreau. I mean, I would
take Bruce Boudreau, get him to Pittsburgh.
That's like maybe the only guy out there that I'd be okay with.
I don't know if Bruce is interested at his age though. I don't think he's in the league right now. I think is he doing TV work? I don't know.
He's helping his son in like the OHL or something, but he has expressed that he wants. I think he wants to get back into the NHL. What about a tandem of Bruce Boudreau with Matt Cook?
Cook has to prove it at higher levels before we move him. He needs to coach at the AHL level.
And right now, he's in the ECHL, I think.
Yep, yeah, Newfoundland.
Yeah.
All right, party poopers. Well, I thought that was a good idea.
That's the thing. You won't see big outside, like Robbie mentioned. You're not going to see big swings to the fence for fresh new NHL coaches. It just doesn't happen as much as I want it to happen. You see that in the NFL with like all of these young coaches coming from the Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan coaching trees. You're starting to see that sort of trickle in. You do not see that in today's NHL as much as, maybe you want some fresher, younger faces with newer ideas and whatnot. Maybe in the future, but not in the short term. But with that, we will wrap it up and we will call it for part 1 of this week's Skating Penguin Network mailbag. For Snail, for Robbie, I have been Garrett Bahana. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Skating Penguin Network, and we will talk to all of you again very soon.